The topic for today is adaptability. And in an ever-changing market and fast-paced working environment, adaptability is a key skill for employees, and especially lawyers who are required to keep up with the pace of change. Now, sometimes law firms are criticised for not always keeping up with the times, but many law firms are actually now realising that they need to change to adapt to client demands. And as a result of that, there's even more need for lawyers to be adaptable. Now, that may mean lawyers who are able to embrace technology and a different way of doing things, but let's not forget that even the day-to-day tasks that lawyers do require a level of adaptability. So today I'm going to identify 4 instances in which lawyers are required to be adaptable, and how you, as a student or somebody with very limited experience in the legal profession, can show an employer, whether in an application form or in an interview, that you have what it takes to be a versatile and flexible lawyer. Because don't forget, when you are applying to law firms, you have to back up any statements with personal examples. You have to prove that you are adaptable if you're going to say that you are. So how do you prove that you're adaptable? Well, number one, you can show that you have the ability to adapt your communication style depending on who you're communicating with. Lawyers have to do this all the time. So when I'm communicating with a client, particularly a client that I don't know very well and maybe haven't established a long-term relationship with, I tend to communicate with them in a much more formal manner than I would, let's say, with my colleague. But also when I'm giving legal advice to a client, I try to make sure that my advice is as clear and understandable as possible, and I try not to use too much legal terminology. So I save that legal terminology for when I'm dealing with my colleagues who at least have knowledge of legal terms. Now, how do you show that you are able to adapt your communication styles as a student? Well, one example might be if you have a part-time job, you may use one form of communication style during your part-time job and a different style of communication when you're at university. So very simple example, but very effective in displaying your ability to adapt your communication style. The second way you can prove that your adaptability is to show that you're able to juggle different tasks. Because as lawyers, we have to juggle all of the time. We could be working on several matters at any one point in time. And even the types of tasks that we do can vary. One day I can be drafting an SPA, share purchase agreement, the next day I could be drafting a due diligence report, and then the next I could be giving advice to a client on how to franchise a business, for example. Now, as a student, how do you prove that you're able to juggle different tasks? Well, it could be that you are a student at university, but as I said, you may also have a part-time job. You may run a legal blog. You may hold certain positions of responsibility, such as being president at your university's law society. So that's one way to show that you're able to juggle different tasks. But also, how do you show that you're able to undertake a variety of different tasks like we do in law? Well, look to what you're studying at university. You might be studying one subject, but often you're studying lots of different modules within that subject. So for example, when I studied French and Arabic at university, one day I was studying French post-colonial literature, the next day I was studying Middle Eastern anthropology. So I used my university studies as an example of how I developed the skill of adaptability. The third way in which you can prove that you are adaptable is to show that you are able to adapt to a changing situation. So for example, as lawyers, we can often spend hours working on a task only to then have the client change their instructions, which means we have to rework it, and often within a very tight deadline. How do you show that you're able to deal with situations like that? We'll give an example of where you've had to overcome a change or even just overcome a challenge. And it could be a physical challenge like running the London Marathon, for example, which requires a high degree of mental resilience. If you're able to get through something as tough as that, then a client simply changing their mind about what they want from you in terms of legal advice shouldn't be as big a deal, and you should be able to cope with that rather well. The final way in which you can prove that you are adaptable is to show that you're adaptable to different working environments and also able to deal with different people with different personalities. Now, with COVID having happened, many of us have already had to adapt to a different working environment, working from home primarily. So even as students, who, if you've taken, vacation schemes or open days, most of them have been held virtually. So already you can use those as examples of how you've had to adapt. But you might also be a student with a diverse cultural background, for example, and you can use that to your advantage to show how you have developed cultural awareness skills and are able to deal with people from different cultures or different nationalities. For example, I very much highlighted this on my application, being British, but also having Tunisian parents and having lived in Tunisia, but I also lived in Paris as well, and dealt with people from a range of backgrounds. I use these examples all to highlight how adaptable I am. And so you can always find a personal example in your life that can help support your application. Don't underestimate the experiences you have had and the skills you have gained through those experiences. But also remember, it's less about the actual experiences you've had and more about how you present them and package them in a way to really show how you can excel as a lawyer. So with that, all the best of luck with your applications, and thank you for watching.